Last week I was approached by Bass, or Stealthiness, from Prime and Evernight. He wanted to organize a roundtable discussion about raiding in general. He invited me, Rolo from Prime Evernight, Spinoza from the Lode from the Bosse from Ghyniverse, and Aegis from Odyssey in Evernight. And we kind of had a chat about the game, and the main topic, of course, was raiding. Do check out Bass's YouTube channel. He's the one who organized everything, and he also uploaded a couple of days ago. His channel is Stealth Evernight. Go check it out. As you can see, this is his upload, his video. So if you want to go check out his content or his video, you can go to Stealth Evernight. But this is my video of our quote-unquote podcast, and I'll have some raid gameplay playing in the background. Hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood Berg, Stealthiness of Evernight. I used to lead Exiles of Arnor and I'm now in Prime. I'm here with some of the most prominent kin leaders in the Lotro community to talk about raid leading and raids in Lotro. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's start off with some introductions. Aegis, can you start us off?
Sure, yeah. I'm going in game as Aegis. I am the leader of Odyssey. I play mostly Guardian, but in general, my favorite role in the raid is tanking. And I've been raiding over the last 12, 13 years, pretty much.
Alright, thank you very much. Ghyn, how about you?
Yes, sir. I am Ghyn, and my kinship is called Reformed on Arkenstone. I'm the kin leader, and it's a quite young kin. Like, we formed just before Hidden Horde, when I kind of broke off with my old kin. And yeah, I do some YouTube, Twitch, and I have a community Discord that is quite big. I'm happy about.
Yeah. I see you in on stream sometime. You're playing a lot of different roles. Would you say you have a favorite role in the raid?
Oh, well, I guess asked this question a lot on stream, and I like every role, so it's hard for me to pick.
Bill.
I'm a filler.
Yeah.
Classic filler.
All right, thanks. Rolo?
Well, I'm Rolo. I am the leader and the raid leader of Prime on Evernight. Been doing that, basically both roles since about Mordor, so not too long, but basically all the relevant raiding in the game. The role I tend to do is tank. I basically play all the tank classes, so whatever is needed. As long as I can avoid captain, I'm happy. And
Yeah.
if we get another one tank raid, I might swap to Lore Master.
All right, thank you very much. And Spinoza?
Yeah, my in-game name is Spinoza, and I'm part of the Kinship at the Lode von der Bosse. And yeah, my favorite role shifts from raid to raid. For now, I like obviously playing blue rune-keeper and maybe some red rune-keeper if maybe in the near future it is allowed. And maybe Lore Master and Hunter are my favorite role in a raid.
All right, thank you very much. Fire Runekeeper, if I believe some Runekeepers in Prime, is very strong right now. Although that might be because they want to play it as well. All right, let's start off with kin leading then, because that's where it all starts before raiding. Aegis, can you start us off talking about like what do you feel is a healthy kin?
Well, I mean, first of all, I have to say that I'm since a short time leader. My former leader basically quit the game like a few weeks ago, so but I mostly was responsible for organizing the raid team and anything related on that. What constitutes a healthy kin? Yeah, I think in general, if I have to answer that question, it's important that you have people that are willing to play with each other. You don't really need to have some rejects in your kin, because that's either causing a knack for drama or basically shifts the kin into a direction you don't want. Let's say you are performing instances or anything, you kind of want to take 5 people that respond immediately rather than trying to avoid the person you rather don't want. So I think a healthy kin in general is people that are willing to play with each other. And I think also what constitutes a healthy kin in raiding perspective is people that know their shortcomings. For example, I mean, I technically have one of each class as well, but I rather don't see myself playing a healer, and I see my strengths mostly as a tank, and it's basically the same for someone else that prefers to play DPS or another particular role in the raid. So, yeah, healthy kin. Yeah, hard to say exactly what you mean with the word healthy, but I think in general it comes down to playing with each other. Yeah, notifying what you are good in and what you are a little less good in, and yeah, I think that's pretty much something that could strive you forward there.
All right, thank you. Rolo, can you follow up on it?
Yeah. Well, I have a question about this since at least in our case, most of the kin community sort of takes place on Discord. And you mentioned a lot about playing the game, which of course is the huge part. But how much do you think that a outside community weighs into the health of the kin?
Aegis?
The outside community into the kin, that depends a bit because, of course, everyone in your kin is from a different origin or comes from a different place. But yeah, in my opinion, I think in general, when I'm looking towards my kin, nobody is really making a lot of hassle about what's going on inside or outside of the kinship. So, yeah. Not really sure what kind of direction I should go in here with that question, but
Oh no,
I think it's more about like the importance of Discord and other media platform where your kin is maybe, well, I think Rolo's saying Prime is very active on like Discord and outside the game, like playing maybe other games with each other.
yeah,
as well.
that way. Yeah, okay. No, I mean, we internally have I'm playing, for example, with a real life friend of mine in game, and a few others as well know each other in game and outside of the game as well. So we have like a few bunches of people together in kin that basically know each other. Yeah.
All right. Again, you said something about at the start that Reformed is quite young as a kin.
Yes.
How are you working on like keeping a healthy community?
I would
being
say
new?
in the short time I've been a kin leader, I've learned quite a lot about how like there's always going to be problems within a kin, no matter how, I guess, good people you think you have. I've had quite a few, what do you call it, falling outs within the kin, and it's not even just about raiding, like issues like that. It's just some people just won't like each other. That's just a fact about life in general, I guess.
Yeah.
And I've tried mediating, talking to people, making people be friends, but that's not always going to work. But for the very least, to have a healthy kin, I think people need to at least get along at a, what do you call it, a minimal level.
Yeah.
Acceptance.
Yeah. So,
All right.
my kin in Hidden Horde, we did tier 3. We started tier 4, but we didn't get far. But that's another topic and different reasons for us not continuing. Yeah, in general, just people need to get along. Discord is really great. People to interact outside of the game, just talk, be friends, learn about each other. I thank God every day for Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. I feel like since Discord, the game has changed a lot in Lotro.
Yeah, if you're not
totally.
on Discord, if you play Lotro, get Discord, start join servers, community servers, kinship servers. You'll do so much better in the game.
Spinoza, can you tell a little bit about your experience with this?
I think for our kinship, we have I think a much more fundamental approach, because I think you have to at least have active players to really do something together. I know there were phases in the past where there were minimum 2 or 3 people online, and we hadn't Discord in that phase. So getting together and sticking together was quite difficult. And I think it's really helpful for a healthy kin if you can somewhat skip these phases, for example, after Hidden Horde or post Hidden Horde, and play other games and come a bit outside of the Lotro bubble, so you can have a much more better time if new content arrives.
Yeah, that's a very good point. All right, let's drop the healthy kin for now, although it's part of this next question. Ghyn, it's a bit of a meme that Lotro is always dying. Have you noticed a lack of new recruits to prepare for new raids? And if not, have you noticed a decline in competing kins on your server for new raid releases?
I would say during like Hidden Horde time, when Hidden Horde was fresh and new, I was getting a lot of people wanting to join for raiding. Obviously, it's been over a year since the last raid, and it's always a steady decline in like activity in the game. That's just natural. I think SSG kind of dropped the ball with how long it's been since the last raid, but at least they admit it. Speaking as someone who does do a lot of content, like on YouTube and stuff, I don't think Lotro is dying. I see quite a lot of interaction, and also my Discord server just keeps growing, so it's clearly a meme, and the game is still going strong, in my opinion.
I think you did an amazing job keeping the community together and help growing the community with your Discord and with your activeness.
Yeah, thanks. The reason, like, when I started the Ghyniverse, it was just like I wanted to try streaming, and it was like Ghyn streaming Discord. But then eventually I felt like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have like stat goals and you can find all the useful information in one place and have a community? I felt like Lotro was missing that. The forums, I think, are a bit outdated, so I kind of wanted to make a bigger thing on Discord.
Yeah. Spinoza, how do you feel about like recruiting and seeing kids around you on the German server?
Yeah, that's a really tough question, to be honest. I think from my perspective on Ghyn, there are always players before an update or a raid release who are willing to raid at least on tier 3. But most of these players are rarely new to the game. They are always some people who play the game for a couple of years, and it's sometimes it's a little bit stuck. But especially on Ghyn, I think the raiding scene is pretty active and pretty nice. We have stable raiding kinships, and that's a pretty nice start on Ghyn. But yeah, new players are rarely. I don't see much of them, sadly.
Rolo, how do you feel about this on Evernight? It's a bigger server, so maybe a different perspective.
Well, you have the fact that since we're all raiding kinships, like high-end raiding kinships, new players will never like apply to us. Or if they do, they don't really have a chance to get in because, well, new player is so far behind on experienced players. So new players won't apply, but players that have already been playing the game for a long time and want to sort of move up in the raiding game, those we never really had a lack of. More, we get too many, and then you kind of have a bloated raid roster if you accept them all or accept a few. And the issue is then, as was mentioned before, that not everyone wants to like fully commit to the higher tier raids, tier 4, tier 5, and then you lose a lot. So how we see it as a trend is that at the start of a raid, we see a lot of people that want to get into raiding apply to your kin for I don't know, tier 2, tier 3. And then when sort of that wave is over, you see a few kins that didn't really make it and fall apart, or people aren't happy in how their progression is going. And those types of players then apply to us because they want to move on from tier 3, which either was or wasn't successful in their raiding kin that they formed or joined.
Yeah.
So there's never
that's a
really
good
a lack of players. They're just at certain moments there are too many, and never really lack of them.
Do you share this idea, Aegis?
Yeah, mostly I do. Yeah, I mean overall, I think in general our kinships have in common is that I'm not recruiting in world chat anymore for new recruits or anything. Usually people are coming to me instead, whether we have raid spots available. I don't really notice like a lack of new recruits. I do notice a lack of good or potential new recruits, and that's a difference, I think.
That's what Rolo was alluding to, I think, about them being maybe a bit too new to the game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also a bit dependent on what kind of approach you have towards the game. Like I have, for example, in my kin, I have like a big component that's really involved into PvP. I have a big component that's involved like in PvE and end game raiding, basically. So I have, in general, not really an objection to recruit someone, but you need to make clear upfront what its role going to be and what his chances are, basically. So, I wouldn't say a decline because I know in the background that the game is thriving a lot on even below level 140 cap players. Where we don't have exact numbers about, but in general, there are a lot of things. For example, before the Shadow that has been released lately for 1 to level 32 players, basically means that that game itself has a lot of people in the same level cap playing at that point. So,
yeah, good point.
All
right, thanks for that.
I have a point to add.
Go
this. So what I noticed a lot, I've had people ask to join Reformed, and I asked them a few questions, etc. And they tell me, okay, I'm a minstrel, I'm pretty good, I want to do higher tier ratings, and when we do raids with them, I just find out, okay, this guy he's not a high tier player, but he applied to join. It's a problem I've dealt with quite a lot. It's hard to know how good people are. So I made this new server where I felt like, if you're a new player, how are you going to find a kin if not in world chat? I felt like that's something that was missing in the game. If you're a good player, how do you find a top tier rating kin? Like when I first started out, I was kind of like a casual player. I found a kin, I just played with them. Not particularly good. I kind of lucked into a rating kin. They saw that I had good gear and invited me. That's kind of how my journey started. But I feel like there's probably a lot of players who get lost in the shuffle because there's nowhere to find like kins to join. It's a little bit of a problem in Lotro, in my opinion.
Yeah, great, for sure. All right. Well, maybe an interesting topic to talk about more in a different talk, but let's go to raid leading now instead of just kin leading. Rolo, can you start us off talking about what makes you or a good raid leader?
Well, you should have. I think the most important thing is you sort of stay relaxed, whatever happens, and you keep control of the group. Like in the end, you're kind of there to have fun. I guess. I hope at least.
Yeah.
It can get heated, right? So being just a person to keep the group together and keep it moving forward is an important part on the morale side of things. But then you also have the side where you kind of need to be knowledgeable about whatever comes with raiding. So I that be classes or fights. So you can actually go into a raid somewhat prepared or have an idea. So in that way, people might actually, respect you, or gain their respect that you actually know what you're doing, and you can actually have a group working together to a common goal. And I think the easiest pitfall to fall in is you just yell at your group because something goes wrong. I think that's like the first. If you do that, you're like no good, just terrible. Never yell.
All right, never yell. That's a good summary. Spinoza, what do you think about this?
I can only agree to Rolo. Calmness, of course, and try to be positive and constructive as much as you can, and maybe be really active outside, not during the raid, but before in the preparation, and maybe after the raid, go spend much time, try to communicate with your raid members, what they think, try to keep a healthy discussion. That's something I would add, but I think Rolo did said everything I would say as well.
Yeah, Ghyn, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I agree with my style of raid leading. My kin in particular is not really a tier 5 raid, I wouldn't say. Like overall, we're more of a tier 3, tier 4. But I have a lot of friends from other kins, so that we do a lot of pugs together, and we do the high tier. If I'm leading a raid, I find it important to be calm, positive, people said. I don't like raid leaders who, I don't know, lose their minds if you make a mistake. If people make a mistake, I think it's important to put some emphasis on what happened, what went wrong, and next time try to do it differently. And obviously, in general, strategizing in between pools and everything, like, all right, we're done raiding today, tomorrow we'll come back, we'll have some new ideas. You also need to be able to make some hard decisions. If someone's not, let's say, doing their job in a high tier raid, you need to be able to replace them, to be blunt. But I think the most important thing as a raid leader is knowledge about the game and the classes. If you're a raid leader and you don't know what Ancient Craft does or Oathbreakers, it's just going to be hopeless. So yeah, that's basically my take on that.
Yeah, for sure. What you were saying, I was just thinking, like, when I was raid leading still, I had a very good idea of what every class was capable of. I knew a lot of the skill names of every class, even if I didn't play them. And now that I haven't done that for over a year, I'm sort of losing a little bit of knowledge on like classes like Warden and Guard that I don't play.
Yeah, definitely.
Aegis, do you have anything to add on the raid leading part?
Yeah, I do. I mean, first of all, I definitely agree on the earlier mentioned things like being calm. Also, what Ghyn says, class knowledge is really important. What I think in general in my raids, what is really important is that I'm just really honest with everyone, and it's really important to know that everyone in your raid can make a mistake. But I really, in general, as a raid leader, I really would like that people admit their mistakes, because that's the only way how you can get over a particular threshold. And if let's say you're, it's one for later questions basically, but let's say you're going to a boss where you have multiple pools or like a lot of pools. If people are not speaking up or not saying what's going wrong, then there's nothing, even as a raid leader, you can change about it. So I think in general, if you want to improve your environment and also the frustration of players because you have been on number X pool, basically, you need to start admitting your mistakes. And secondly, what I normally do, at least as a raid leader, is at least during progression, or what I used to do during progression, is that at the end of the evening, I ask everyone in the raid to write me something about what they think about the fight so far, how about it's going. And based on that, I make a consensus and change something basically the next day. So
that's a personal approach.
Yeah.
All right. I've heard a couple of points about like mental and maybe benching people, and those will come up a little bit later. But let's first talk about the raid leading itself. Spinoza, can you talk to us a little bit about the facets of raid leading, like preparation, theory crafting, the raid itself, of course, and then maybe things you do after a raid night?
I think first it depends on what you're aiming for as a raid group and which players you have in your pocket. I think it's much more preparation if you have players in your raid who barely know many interactions in the game, like Ghyn said about the ancient craft and stuff like that. I think you can work with them and you can somehow teach them how some interactions work, but I think that will you have to do much more if you have skilled players in your pocket and can rely a bit on them. I think theory crafting is the most part of the preparation, in my opinion, but I think in my kinship, we have like minimum 10 players who actively discuss the encounters we're facing. And that's mostly it's really nice, but sometimes it can be hard to find a perfect fit, a perfect solution, and a perfect approach how we want to do a boss or stuff like that.
Yeah, there might be a lot of different ways it might work. So if you're talking with 10 people about it, then maybe you get a lot of different ideas, but not one that you can all agree on.
Yeah, and one thing, I think after the recent changes and the recent updates, there's so much changes going on. Again, you said that it's somewhat mandatory to have a perfect knowledge about the classes and what they are doing. I think you can you talk a bit more about that?
You mean like classes or like a raid leader?
Yeah, the raid leader and how much.
It's very important that you know. I would say so my story, my kinship back in Throne is when I first like started leading stuff. I didn't even know what Sheila Dunedain was. I played 3 classes, and it was it's pretty hard to lead if you can't see what's going wrong. If you don't notice like lores not being on stuff, if you don't notice,
okay, okay, because I was thinking about it, and our kinship is or better say I do it the way that I distribute the work on, for example, for the crowd control guys or for the DPS guys or tanks or healers to work on solution as their part. Okay, my English is sometimes a bit hard to understand, I guess, but So I think we distribute the labor of the different specs, like healers, tanks, and so on. And I think I'm much more confident if I say to my DPS or whatever, okay, guys, we have this situation. What are your feelings, thoughts about this? Have you guys solutions? Because I think they are much more skilled. For example, in the champs or Redbergs or whatever, and I rely on that feedback, and it makes my decisions much more easier to mix them all together.
It's a really great point. If you have people in your raid that you trust, maybe you don't know everything about a champ, how it works. You have people you can trust, you can kind of delegate things. That could work too.
Mm-hmm. And Rolo, I've been in Prime for a while now. I think you would probably agree with Spinoza on a bunch of this, because I've noticed you give me or Sota or whoever is on Lore Master like responsibilities to sort the CC part.
Yeah, like this is what we're talking about here is pre-raid prep mostly, but I think the same goes for in-raid things. When you have a moment where the CC job is just vital, you should be able to trust someone in your raid to do the CC job and talk about it, basically take the lead in that part of the fight, instead of trying to micromanage everything. Just letting other people take over when needed is very, very important. Like having the confidence to do that, to let people do that. But like there's been a lot of talk here about raid leader understanding other classes, and lots of people in your kin also contributing with tactics. But one important part I feel is missing. That is, everyone comes up with theories. Everyone has their theories, but applying them, you only have a limited time to actually try them. And weeding through the bullshit and actually getting a good theory or a good approach is very important. And not waste your time on things that won't work or have a low chance of working, which is also an important part, as well as being able to really explain to your raid what you want and how you want it done is also vital.
Well, that's a good point, but do you then, like, during all the theory crafting, do you just call out the lore master to be like, yo, come up with a plan to CC these mobs the longest time you can, or do you make the call to choose one of the different theories that come up?
It's just collaborative, really. We kind of talk about it and then we come up with a solution. But mostly, I will just ask people how they would think the best approach is, and then you start a conversation about that, right? You don't just say, okay, I think this is the best, and no questions asked. We're going to do this. There's a dialogue there.
Okay. Aegis, do you have anything to add about the preparation and theory crafting?
I think most people already said basically what I had in mind as well. Like in general, when it's coming to preparation, from my perspective of view, I already try to pulse whatever everyone else in their particular role is thinking. I think in general, when I'm looking towards my kin, I can trust all the other 11. And I think that's what defines a raiding kin from a social kin. If you want a clear end game content, let's say tier 4 up to tier 5, you basically need to have 12 people in your raid that know how to play their own class. They need to know what skills are basically doing. It's not the place for holding hands basically anymore. When it's coming down to preparation and theory crafting, basically what I said before already as well, like I always try to pulse the what the CC or the crowd control, the support or the tanks or the healers or the DPS in general, as the roles you basically have in Lotro, are thinking about the approach towards the fight, what they would like to see changed, and based on their feedback, I always try to come up with a plan. And what I normally do, at least for my kin, is I make an animation of, let's say, a fight for Rimmel. I made an animation for Rimmel for each class, what they need to do, in which phase, at which percentage. So there is no bullshitting around anymore about what they need to do in which phase at which time. So there's a lot basically you can clear out already on preparation towards, basically going towards the fight, rather than to see basically how it goes. So
you don't have to do much in the moment anymore. You can just go.
I mean, the thing is, in general, and that's my opinion, at least as a raid leader, the less you have to say in a raid, or the less you have to point people in a particular direction, usually the better it goes.
Yeah, I agree with that. But you said an animation of the fight.
Yep.
I'm not sure what you mean. Like, we used raidplan.io to just plan out the whole fight and just... I just do Discord and then...
No, I started originally with a PowerPoint. Like, literally, PowerPoint.
Uh-huh.
I'm a teacher in real life, so... I mean, I in general have like a few... I have some experience with making animations and things like that. But I mean, like an animation with PowerPoint or like a similar other program to make animations with put a few dots on a white screen and give them a name, and basically from that you can explain your tactics depending on what arena or what place you are.
Okay, cool. For everyone else, I would suggest using raidplan.io or raidplanner.io, something like that. It has great tools to plan out raid fights, and then you just stream your screen and then explain it to your raid in a very, very good way. I would definitely check it out if you are looking into doing something like that.
I do know it, but
Hey, Aegis, I heard you talk about trusting the 11 players on your lineup.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the bench, because of course all 12 are not always available, or at least not unless you're Exodia, I think. How do you keep the people on the bench happy or involved in your raid?
Yeah, that's a good one. I've been thinking about this question, and I think the cold hard truth about this question is that you can't keep everyone happy and involved. Main reason is when you're doing progression, depending on how long it takes. I mean, if you have a raid like Threshold that took literally 2 hours for most kins to clear, or if you take Fall of Khazad-dûm, where my kin basically cleared it on the last day for original challenger at the time, there's a lot of difference going on about how to keep people happy and involved. I think in general, if you want to keep people happy and involved, you need to give them clearance of what's going on. When you're going progression, for example, with this current raid now as well, I expect that tier 3 is the first thing to be released. You're going to farm some gear, and when you're farming some gear, you want to go with the same people, or most of the same people at the start of the raid anyway, because gearing people's alts that are basically having a rare chance of going into the raid is basically a hard shot. Concerning to keep people happy and involved, what I think is most important is to give people clearance about their status towards the raid. And I mean, currently when I look at my own raid team, I think I have like 14, 15 members that are basically main material. Then I have like a few subs that have basically also no problem with that. And yeah, I think that's the best way to keep people involved, just to give clarity about their role. And yeah, acceptance is a second thing. I mean, there are always people that are not willing to step outside of the raid team for someone else, because it just makes them disappointed or something. But yeah, I don't think in general you can keep everyone happy and involved. It's just also dependent on how large your raid team is. Currently, I have everyone in my raid team covered. So let's say I can't raid for a day, someone else can replace me. But yeah, to keep everyone happy and involved, I mean, once progression is over, I always try to take 2-3 new people at a time. I mean, not too many at the same time, because basically start progression all over again. But yeah, you try to work them in one by one, and eventually you'll have 18, 20, 24 happy members. Hopefully.
All right. Thank you. Spinoza, how do you do it? Keep them involved, keep them happy.
I can only agree with Aegis. I think there's pretty less actual doing in keeping everyone happy, because nobody who really wants to raid is happy about being on the bench. But if you're happy, like we are, you have some guys who can fit this spot and fit this role, and we're really lucky to have these guys. We have, I think, we have 2 or 3 guys who can't really commit in a progression because of due to their work times, and they are always, if they are available, they will fit the bench spot, and this is really nice in planning. And as a raid leader, you can give them the feedback, and honest feedback about how much they are appreciated and how important their job as a 13th or 14th man is. Yeah, basically.
All right. Yeah.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree with what Spinoza said. Like, I mean, I've been raiding over the last, basically after Rift, I kind of started raiding during Moria times. But I mean, obviously, I'm a bit older than most of the people in my raid team at this point. There are always people that have issues with real life related things that that can always change in the last minute or so. That's of course unfortunate. But I think it's always also a bit of a change towards the approach of the raids. I mean, when the new raid comes, I will try to give it like a full go. But you always have to keep in mind that I think most of our kins, and I think I speak for all four of us basically here, is that the way, for example, how Exodia rated, that's not something that's going to be managed even for my kin. So you always have to keep in mind that you have to work around a few people that have something coming up, or and that way you can always fit in someone from the bench, and it's nice to have someone on the bench. But
Yeah.
it's always tough to have them already at that same particular moment.
Yeah, Ghyn, how do you do it?
I think I think if you join a prog, you need to understand that there's a chance you might be on the bench. If you're joining a high tier prog, it's not a group that do content for fun. It's to beat the hardest challenges in the game. And if you want to beat the hardest content, you need the best players. And I think you just need to accept that if you're not being chosen by the 12 or in the 12 in the raid, that's just a fact about high tier rating.
Yeah.
Obviously, people might get upset if they're not in the. Like, some people might believe that they should be in the raid team, but I think you just need to respect the raid leader and their decisions. If you're not happy with the decisions, you could always leave. That's probably happened a lot over different kins.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Rolo, any more insights on this topic?
No, not really. Everything has pretty much been mentioned. There's just like there are two phases, right? Progression phase where you try to pick the best setup, and people on the bench probably won't see that much time. And then the farm phase where you just pick a few people at a time and then try to teach them the raid and get them through, so everyone gets something to do. But we haven't found the magic of keeping everyone happy on the bench, so I think that's just, as mentioned, impossible.
Well, I think being on having been on both sides of the spectrum, I'm a bit chill now. I don't really mind it. But back in the day, I remember very clearly wanting to raid and then not getting to, and then getting to raid and performing well, and then staying on the main team for a while. And it's exactly like you all said. It's just you need 12 players very committed to it. You need a couple bench players that are committed, but also know that being on the bench might be the thing that they're going to be doing for this prog. And then if they're happy, then they stay, and if they're unhappy, then they're always free to leave and find a main team place somewhere else. Ghyn, say progression starts. How do you track a player's personal performance, and how do you motivate the individual to do better?
Just tell them, suck it up and do better.
All right. Good.
How do I track?
That might have been your answer. That's a good answer.
Players' personal performance. I mean, once you lead raids for a while, it gets easier and easier to see who's, could you call it slacking? Who's slacking in the raid?
Mm-hmm.
You notice things like if there's like CC being missed and stuff, or obviously DPS. You can look at their damage after the fight. Healing numbers you can look at as well, but it's not as good of a measurement because a lot of it's overheals, and obviously tanks communicating, and just communication in the raid is that's a good one for me. Like, if I have a player who is muted during a raid, that's a big no-no for me. If you don't talk in the raid, that's a red flag for me personally.
You want all 12 players to be on comms?
Yeah, like being able to make small call-outs like, I need heals, I need overheals. You have players who just write in chat, and if you're doing high tier raiding, you need to be able to talk, make quick small call-outs. Obviously you have someone making big call-outs, but yeah, Just the small things like that. If I see things like that, I tell people the truth. Say it like that.
Yeah. Rolo, what do you think of this?
Well, I agree with the fact that if you do it for a while, you can quickly see who is, who's performing well and who isn't. But it's also a little bit of who can perform well and who can't. Some players just cannot really do better, and then pushing them to do better would be weird. And some players can do a lot better, and then they screw up, and then you can see that after a while quite easily. Yeah. How do you get them to do better? Well, players that can't really do better, they that sort of have to reach their limit. It doesn't help too much to try to push them, because it will just not end well for them, because it's just a bad feeling all around. And people who can do better, it's more of a personal approach how you do it per player. Yeah.
Do you like talk to them after a raid, or do you send them a message? What,
It really depends, right? Because this raid, you had a lot of issues with positioning, with puddles, and some players were just they just didn't understand the fight, so they needed help with that. But one big thing that I've noticed is people's UIs are terrible in this game. They're all so bad. And it is no wonder that people die all the time, even though they're good players, because they just can't see. So even though their performance is bad, it's not really because they are playing bad, it's because they just can't see it, because they don't have a good UI to actually show what is going on. So it really depends on the situation of how you help someone, right?
so you help them out with Prime plugin, for example.
Well,
Free advert.
not even that. It's like it's a simple things, like people that have their health in the top left corner, right? And then they don't notice that they're taking damage and eventually dying because their health is all the way in the top. When there are other things going on, they don't see their health. So even just small things like that, moving their health, helps them a lot with their performance.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's just very, very personal.
Okay. Spinoza, do you have any personal approach to personal players, motivating them?
Nothing new, to be honest. Yeah, feedback, of course. And speaking about plugins, it's I remember a scene where one of our healers didn't track some of the cooldowns of our tanks and overhealed due to last stand. And this is something which can make a difference when you talk about stuff like plugins or UI, which can really benefit your performance or the performance of your raid members. That's something, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I heard you say something earlier about like asking your team members to write to you first, like post a message after the raid, for example, about their own performance, about their thoughts. I'm assuming that's sort of an answer to this question as well.
Yeah, I think in a certain sense it is. I mean, the fact that people can come up with like a theory or an approach towards a particular fight basically means that they're thinking about how to improve their personal gameplay. As for the motivational part, I think this might have been one of the first raids I actually considered to not raid with my raid team, but to lead them actually from behind the controls, but just watching their screens. Although most likely not going to happen. But I think in general, to keep track of the player's performance, I think most people are, as basically mentioned before, people are relying more on the plugins these days, like healing numbers on combat analysis or damage numbers on combat analysis, or basically timers. Really important. I think as well during progression. I've always since before Throne, I've always kept track of how much a person is dying in a raid. That sounds like maybe a really odd thing to do, but if you basically notice at some point that a particular individual keeps dying over and over, you eventually confront him about the fact that he basically needs to watch why he is dying, or basically we watch it back, or he's recording and we watch it back, and it's basically a way to improve it. And I mean, it's more than normal that people make mistakes, because if you can't make mistakes, then there's no way to improve yourself. But it is important to learn from your mistakes. And I mean, it's fine even if you do it the second time or a third time, but I mean, eventually there needs to be an increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we've talked about tier 4 and 5 specifically for a while now, because I think most of you think tier 3 is, it is progression, but it is also a given that you're going to clear it. But tier 4 and 5 are a little bit more challenging, often requiring hundreds of pulls in total. Rolo, how do you maintain a strong mental in the team?
For raiding the raid itself, I don't really think most of the time you need to sort of maintain a strong mental. The people that are doing tier 4 and tier 5 are most of the time very motivated, so they come with their own motivation to keep a strong mental. And if you're a decent raid leader, you can kind of keep the group together. It's more the outside influences that kind of destroy groups. But yeah, I mean, I think if you play on Evernight, you know very well what I mean. And how do you maintain a strong mental when the server is literally frozen for half the fight? Are you even raiding at that point anymore? Does mental matter? Because you can't play the game anyway?
I don't know. It's fighting against the environment.
Yeah, like if everything just works, I don't really see that many issues with mental if you have a decent group together.
So it's mostly intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
All right. Spinoza, do you have any other insights here?
Yeah, don't take the game too seriously, I think. Even though we did the T4 and T5 clears on the last raid and the raids before that, we actually don't want it to be exact on that placement we end up. But the fact that we only want to complete is the highest difficulty was the main common reason to raid. And if you have, and I said it before, if you have really good high quality people around you sitting in the same boat, laughing about the most absurd stuffs happening in Lotro, and these things, they will happen in Lotro, then you will have a good time, although you're dying like the 120th times on a boss or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, any other insights?
I think if you're doing high tier raids, most people who are like in a main team, they know what they signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
Not there to, kill it in 10 runs or stop. They're there to work their hardest in every role to try to kill this boss. Spinoza made a really good point. Don't take the game too seriously. Try to have fun. At the end of the day, it's still it's a video game. It's not life or death. It's not that seriously or serious. Mm-hmm. But I think as a raid leader specifically, you need to try to stay positive, keep a calm and relaxed attitude in your raid. Like, don't lose your shit on a single player if they make a few mistakes, maybe over and over. Try to be calm, keep a good atmosphere in the raid, and it'll be a better time for everyone.
Yeah, Aegis, any new insights?
No, I think most of it has been said, to be fair. I think when you're doing like a lot of pulls, get enough sleep at least. That's, I think in general for gamers that's a knack to stay up for too long to talk about things. That basically just happened, and if you take that too long, you'll notice that basically the next day. So,
all right,
good point.
Yeah, All right, let's talk about the raids and the mechanics and the upcoming raid a little bit. There's a couple of very interesting questions here. Spinoza, can you start us off talking about what is a good raid for you? What would be a very good raid?
Yeah, a challenging raid, of course, for everyone with different difficulties and with a good loot system, which is rewarding. I do like the old system with tier 1, tier 2, and tier 2, and somewhat cherry on top and challenge mode. That was pretty much the best raiding I've experienced in Lotro. Because it was clearly defined what you get when you pick the certain difficulty, and really every player had a specific tier for him or herself to do the instance. Yeah, that's something what went wrong, I think, in the last time and the last couple of raids. What was the question after the difficulty in tiers? Progression length?
Yeah, progression length. I mean, anything you would like to talk about. What is a good raid for you? Boss fight length, I think, has become a part of the talk in the last few years because we've had some really long fights.
Yeah.
And the amount of bosses in a raid is also a point of interest.
Yeah. I don't mind having a long progression, to be honest. I think a raid hadn't to be done in on one day. You can do it on several days if the bosses are fun. The boss fight length is something which kind of expanded too much in the last raids. I think 15 minutes is a good shot for an end boss. And I personally I would love to see a raid with more than 4 bosses, and the fact that in the last raids there are some kind of mini bosses kind of makes it hard to actually count keep track of the count of the boss counter. I mean, if you say in a raid there are 4 bosses and there are 2 mini bosses from them, so okay, do 4 bosses, real bosses, and pick 3 or 4 mini bosses or side bosses into the raid, and I'm happy.
Yeah. Ghyn, what do you think?
I think a lot about this. All right, so I have a few points. When it comes to like boss fight durations, I think 10 to 15 minutes is a good length of a boss fight. A good example right now is Rimmel, last boss in Hidden Horde, especially on higher tiers. If you're a good rating of a good raid team, then the only hard part is the last ad wave, and everything before that is just 10 to 15 minutes of like pretty easy stuff if you're a really good team, which makes it like you're wasting a lot of time before the hard part. So shorter duration, I think, like Rimmel is a bit too long. I think the tier system right now works pretty well. Tier 1 is like everyone can access it. Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, Tier 5, it works pretty well. I do miss the old system with especially the challenge mode. That was a big thing for me, making the fight totally different for extra loot, like getting good stuff by doing a really hard challenge. When it comes to the amount of bosses, personally, I think a raid, especially in an expansion, should have at least 4, but I'm kind of disheartened by hearing that. I think it was Severlin who said it on like a Core of the Rings, that 3 bosses is like their main goal for a raid. I would rather them take a bit longer to give us even 6 or 7 bosses, and just take a bit longer between each raid and give us more bosses. So what I would like. Loot is important. Tier 5, Tier 4, Tier 5 should have unique loot. That's not been the case with the previous raid. That's kind of annoying as well, killing the raid pretty early. So like imagine Rimmel with the challenge of no one has to die. Like that's a good challenge. Just a little twist in a boss fight.
No, not sorry. No, from all the challenges, please don't. Nobody has to die.
No,
From
I
all
know.
the challenges, yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that. I'm just throwing an example. Like it
Yeah,
makes
okay.
everyone has to do their job, try not to die. But anything, like any challenge, make a little twist on a boss fight makes it so much more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Aegis, what are your insights on this?
I absolutely agree. Like the biggest fun I had in the game were in the times where there was actually tier 2 challenge, referring to OD or Tower of Tank, for example.
Yeah.
Like all pretty good bosses, multiple mechanics, not any. Yeah, I wouldn't say maybe with maybe one exception or something. Like all bosses have actual mechanics, require some insight to clear them. Don't have a too long length, in my opinion. I think the longer you are in the raid, let's take for example Remorchant, each boss fight basically takes a tiny bit longer each time. I think that's a good approach towards the raid in general as well. I think the final boss fight can be a bit longer than one of the earlier bosses. As for the amount of bosses, personally, I think I agree with Ghyn. I would like to see 4 at the minimum. I think it's a good bare minimum for a raid in general. Any less than that is I would rather say give it like a couple more months and release something that's bigger. As for progression length or boss fight length, I think I would agree with most of them, but maybe make the first bosses 5 to 10 minutes and the last boss 20 minutes maximum or something. But I do agree that there are a lot of bosses that have the knack that the interesting mechanics usually come in the last 25 to 30% of their actual health. So you could cut a little bit off of that, basically.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I did tier 3 progression with my old Ghyn XLs, and the first time we got to Rimmel, we got to the last phase immediately, and in that, I mean, we're all boomers, so we got like 2 hours of raiding, maybe twice a week, but anyway, you can imagine on a night where you get to Rimmel, and you have to get through the gauntlet as well, you get 3 pulls of Rimmel in a night, because you know the first 15 minutes of the fight, and you know you're gonna do it, and then you wipe. At three pulls in the night just seems low.
It's another
Rolo.
terrible thing that was in this raid was the gauntlet, and not giving us locks for clearing the gauntlet is a terrible design. Having to clear that gauntlet every time you fight Rimmel is really, really bad.
Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely.
Rolo, do you have any more insights on this topic?
Well, I think I'm not the only one that has thought a lot about what a good raid is. And I think the best raid they have made and they can make and they should make is Remorchant again. As in, you have 4 bosses, you have 1 gimmicky boss at the start. It was a bit weird as the spiders, but it was also kind of fun and it was easy, so everyone could do it. Great first boss. Then you have Thossalun, bursty boss, short fight, explosive, great. The third boss that was too easy, but it was like a control fight, different kind of thing.
Very
Great.
mechanics heavy.
And then a long last boss that had something for everyone. So then you have like 4 fights that are all different from each other. So you have something for everyone, and you just have a great raid.
Mm-hmm. Also had loot on tier 4 and 5.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ditch the whole loot situation because it's been quite poor the last few times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's kind of...
We'll talk about that a little bit later as well.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of difficulty in tiers, like you don't need to add mechanics to every new tier. I feel like just saying, okay, it's the same fight, but it has a lot more morale, does a lot more damage. The enrage timer is the same. Good luck. Which just forces you to perform better in ways you might not have expected. Which is also a very interesting thing. Like, mechanics don't mean a better fight. More mechanics doesn't mean better fight.
in general. Can I add one more thing, by the way?
Yeah, go.
What I think constitutes a good raid in general is the fact that each class could be used as well in the raid. Currently, you see in Rimmel decline of champions, I think, due to Shatter and specific mechanics. If you look to Fall of Khazad-dûm, you see a decline in Hunters because you need a lot of AoE. I think in general, a good raid has the ability to take, like each possible combination of classes. And when I basically looked at the past, like older raids with the challenge concept, also Throne, I think it was way more positive, in a way more positive daylight towards classes that have, that are basically quite behind other classes right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's been some talk about mechanics already, but let's look back a little bit. Which mechanics, Ghyn, from any raid did you really like, and which do you dislike?
So I have a few points on a few different raids I just want to mention. I really enjoy raids where it requires coordination between raid members and them working together to beat the boss. A good example, just level 75 is when I first started raiding, because I got the game on release, but I was kind of like a quester, and then I took a long break. But I got into raiding with Dragok and Saruman. I really, really enjoyed those fights. Dragok with the coordination with the CJ, and you have to do the right order. Everybody working as a team. I really like that. The rings in the Saruman fight, like right, red, blue, green. I love that kind of stuff. Shelob, as people have mentioned, really great fight. People have to burn all the dead bodies. There's CC for Loremaster and Berg to work on. Some guy has to use the light at the right time. You have to free people from Cocoon. There's phases when she's toppled where DPS has to step up and use their cooldowns properly. There's a good challenge for the healers. The tank has to position correctly because Shelob can do bad things if she frontals people. Just a lot of positioning in that fight I really enjoy. And also boss 3 and Remo, Rukor, and like timing the dipping into the puddles to get the debuff. Just a lot of coordination is something I really enjoy. I also think every fight should have an enrage timer, because let's face it, people taking almost an hour to kill Rimmel is kind of funny. Shouldn't happen. It's way too long. A raid should be punishing you to push a bit, not to just, let's get 5 tanks and just live and we can beat it. One thing I really hate about raids is raids with the hard part at the end. I already mentioned the Rimmel fight, where the last phase is the hardest by far. And another good example is Fingar back in Abyss, where when you get the dwarves at the end, that's like the hard part. It's like 15 minutes of DPSing the boss until then.
Yeah. Spinoza, any mechanics you really like and dislike?
I really do like the Ostunhat encounter. I like the splitting up the raid for the Mumax, and even though sorry, Woundwing,
Woundwing,
genau, exactly. And I really like the acid wing as well. The thing with the platforms where you have to kind of coordinate yourself, which is for now our server performance hardly as I think it's unable to manage. But it was fun. It was really fun back in the days. I really did like the Bukot fight. The boss before Saruman on Ortank, where you have to stand still, and the whole room is coming closer, and you have to position really, really well, and that was really, really fun. I don't like mechanics which includes some classes that something Aegis already said. Shatter damage, for example. And I don't like bosses which have a heavy part with RNG on it. For example, ID1 on Anvil. it was just too much RNG.
The thick worm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what I'm hearing is, well, so far is especially like mechanics that don't necessarily punish a type of gameplay, like punish melee specifically, which we see a lot in Rimmel and second boss as well. It's like very range heavy fights. The chain on boss 2, the bottles on boss 3, the shatter on boss 3, shatter on boss 2. It's like very heavily punished for one specific type of class. Rolo, you said I wouldn't mind them just increasing the health and damage on tiers, but are there any mechanics you would like to see before they do that?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of nice mechanics. I do agree with Ghyn that mechanics that really require teamwork are the best, especially the ones where you alone can't deal with it. You need multiple people to do something, otherwise you wipe. I do like that. There's so many examples of that. We're just like setting up a good burst. I mean, it all comes together, right? Like Shelob has been mentioned a few times, which is everyone has their own job, so it's a lot of teamwork there. But at the same time, you need to set up a good burst, otherwise you won't reach the enrage timer. So then, even if you don't add new mechanics, because everyone already has a job on the lower tier, just more health and you're increasing the difficulty by quite a bit because everyone cannot make a mistake anymore eventually, which is great. And then for mechanics people dislike, I do agree RNG mechanics are bad. The easy mechanics to dislike are of course like shatter or the Shelob belly flop, where it also left a shatter box basically. Stuff like you can't see and then you die to it are bad. But my number one thing I really hate is bosses that do constant knockbacks, like in successions. Like Finger tornadoes were terrible. The Unbroken one fight was terrible. In the latest 6-man, the constant dragging in also terrible. They just need to stay away from knockbacks, and I'm happy.
Okay. And you said RNG mechanics. Can you name any specifically that are bad? RNG mechanic.
In the Balrog fight, you had the thing where a certain person could get rooted and an incoming healing debuff, if I'm remembering correctly. That was random if you're outside of puddles, which is the weirdest thing ever. It made no sense. And if you had good RNG on that, you basically didn't notice it, and you had one time a bad RNG on a person that's just doing an important thing, and you wipe. It's just terrible.
Freezing breath, for example, from Rimmel, then also an RNG mechanic. Because if I get it on Yellowberg, everyone is happy. If the hunters get it, everyone is sad.
It's an RNG mechanic, but you have the ability to outplay it, which makes it a good RNG mechanic, in my opinion. Things you can't outplay are bad. Things you have the possibility to outplay are good. Of course, you can have some very, very bad luck, but yeah.
All right. We've alluded to loot system a little bit. Aegis, can you start us off to talk about like what type of loot system would you like to see in the game if you were in charge right now?
Well, I mean, from my time, at least during Throne times, we used Master Looter, and that still has my preference because the knack for RNG currently in the game for having loot, seeing basically people ending up with loot for a couple bosses in a row, and basically people ending up with nothing all the time is just frustrating to a lot of people. Now, when it comes down to progression, it doesn't really matter because we distribute it accordingly anyway. But I think in general, the way loot is being, how you get loot these days is not really. It doesn't really feel like rewarding or something. When people were playing a raid back in the days like Tower of Orthanc or or als Dunhoth, people were really excited when they got a coin where they could spend their DKP or their points or something they've earned before because they attended a certain amount of raids. And these days, you just end up with whatever God wants to give you, basically, and that's where you have to do it with. And what I find a bit more disturbing at this point is that there are multiple people pointing out that the loot system is not as rewarding as it used to be. They're even mentioning things that could change, and nothing is being done with it. And that's just annoying me.
Mm-hmm. Spinoza. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no. That's basically pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anything comes up, you can always say more. Spinoza, what do you think of the current loot system, and how would you improve it?
Yeah, I can agree again with Aegis. One thing I would like to add. I really do like the throne item rewards back then, and specific something even something spicy like a class item, or really what is in higher tiers, or even the last boss. If the last boss will give you something unique, you will have much more motivation to do it more than once and keep the motivation up. That's something I would add. But to be honest, the loot system, loot wasn't really something I was really happy with. It was more the challenge or something getting together with friends and raid together. That was more the goal, not the loot itself. But I really agree with the point that the actual loot system is really unrewarding, and it's you do one tier 1 or tier 2 raid, and you shift every raid piece to your tanks or healers, and after that your DPS, and that's basically it. So there's no spiciness in the loot system right now. But I don't. I'm honest. I don't have a good solution for that.
Okay. Rolo, do you have a good solution?
No, I'm just gonna complain about loot too. I mean, I think they have two different problems. The itemization is just not interesting at all, and then trying to make a good loot system with itemization that is just not interesting is hard. I don't think they can make a good loot system with what they have. I mean, I personally don't really care about loot. I just raid for the fun of it. I mean, I really don't care about what drops, but if there are special items on certain bosses, it would be more fun. But their overall approach to itemization right now is just so boring. Some items have set bonuses and just a bunch of stats with essences, and that's about it. There's just nothing in there that is interesting. As long as
can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Back in Abyss and some raids back level 60, you have something like I don't know the English expression of it. You have 10 or 20 on it, and you have to the boss will do something. The red bar, the opposite of the hope system. You know what I mean? The red, yeah. Something like that is
Radiance.
Or Radiance was something they tried out, but I think the reason why they didn't stick to it was because it excluded so many players, and I think it's really hard to balance, to be honest, to give the casual player actually loot with completing the most easiest difficulties, and reward the players who do the raid on the highest tiers. I don't know the right solution, but I'm repeating.
Yeah. Ghyn, do you have any ideas on this?
Yes, I do. Like previously mentioned, I also really enjoyed the Master Looter, but I also understand why that was taken away, because you have reports of people just scamming everyone, taking all the loot. I do miss Master Looter in like kin raids and stuff, but I understand the reasoning for it. So even though I wish Master Looter to come back, I understand. I think loot is kind of a problem recently it's very generic and boring in my opinion. There's a lot more creativity to be had that they can do. A good example is like the last update now, the 3-mans and the new earrings that people can get. There's 18 different earrings, I think. Like 6 for each, like might, agility, will classes can drop 6 each.
Yeah.
And only like 3 or 4 of them are like the best in slot if you just do the math. It's like they don't know their own game, how it's being played. Whoever's doing the loot and the administration doesn't seem to know which stats players are going for.
What do you mean? Tactical mastery and outgoing heal is fine on the same earring.
That's a really good example. Tactical mastery and a healing piece. And
outgoing heal.
Yeah.
it's
basically the same stat.
Yeah.
And you see like shields with crit defense ×2 on it. Like what? And what else? Captain shields, the new drops are not better than old stuff. It's just they don't seem to know what's already out. It seems like they're just following a formula, and it's really boring and generic. When it comes to the earrings, you have like some of them with high crit and finesse, some with high crit and mastery that only drops from certain classes, and those are like best in slot for pretty much every class, maybe except a few, like tanks maybe. When it comes to tanks, you can look at the like will drops are usually better for tanks. Maybe you want to get the finesse. It's just all over the place with loot. And I also think like every tier increasing, and what do we get? We just get higher item level and items. That's pretty boring as well. Instead, I think they need to be more creative. Give us purple items in tier 1, tier 2, then teal, and then maybe gold on higher tiers. That's an advantage to more bosses in a raid. You can spread the loot out on multiple bosses. Like Throne was really good for administration, in my opinion. You had an armor piece for every boss, pretty much. You had class items if you did the hard challenge. That was really fun if you were able to do that, and one person got the class item. Really rewarding. And like higher tier rewards, especially in raids. Why not put a gold necklace on tier 5? Really low drop rate, that's fine. Gives people a reason to run tier 5. For example, like a necklace for Hunter, 10% upshot damage and a few essence slots, and like a set bonus for every class. Just be a bit more creative with the game, in my opinion.
I think the item level idea is good enough for a lot of tier 5 loot, but it should mean something. Like right now, if you get a item level upgrade, it doesn't mean anything. What it should mean mostly for DPS, if you get a couple item levels on your chest, you should do noticeably like a percentage more DPS.
Yeah, there's a problem with item level as well.
Yeah.
If I play on my main, I have a chest piece item level 475, and I get a 476 drop. Then I get a tell from a friend, hey, do you need that piece? And I'm like, I feel really bad for keeping it for a few stats. That feels really bad. But you still want it to improve your character, but it's one of the downsides of that system.
That's what Rolo is saying. I think is for you, that's maybe like 300 vitality, which is nice. But for him, it might be just a straight up like new piece or 6 item level upgrade. But the difference is so minor that like if you had that piece already, it should already mean for you that you're doing more than someone with a 472 piece. Because you have 475. Like item level, why put it on there if it's only gonna be a couple of hundred of vitality usually? Like the offstats like crit and finesse are usually like maybe 1k difference. Like over your whole set of armor and jewelry, you're gonna save 2 or 3 essences worth of stats.
It's just another problem with having so many tiers. You need like an increase on each tier. Instead, they should just take it down to 3 tiers or something, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Hey, we've talked about a lot of things. The new raid is on Borer. I asked you guys what are your hopes for the race the world first. Of course, the last race to world first was pretty much Exodia. And and then all the other kins followed suit quite a few weeks later. Are you guys in any way competing? How are you going into this raid? You've talked about your hopes for it, but how are you preparing right now? How are you going into this raid? Spinoza, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, I think we will do it like we did at the last raids. We just right now we have some new guys coming in. Some old players didn't have the time in this phase right now. We will do it, but yeah, I think we have to be. I don't know the right expression, but I think we have to be humble. We have to be. I think there are many more good kinships on Ghyn here right now. There are some new ones forming, and I think they will. Ghyn will be a really good raiding spot, and we have to see where we end up. I'm always happy if we can complete the raid on the highest difficulty, and if it's in the top 10, we'll be happy.
All right, Rolo, how about you?
I mean, the same as we always do. We're going in. We're not really gonna go for anything. I'm just gonna go in to have fun. New raid, gaming with your friends. So it's a good time. Let's hope this time they actually balance the bosses, so you don't need very questionable gameplay mechanics to actually do the fight. And I actually hope this time they finish the last boss before they release the raid, because I don't know what Remo was, but that was not a fight on release. So
Yeah.
that's my wishes.
All right. Pretty humble so far. Aegis, how about you?
I think the same as I always have. I'm not going into race to world first with any expectations. Never had, never will be. But usually with the right commitment and focus, usually end up in high spot usually anyway. I mean, my current raid team consists out of I think 80% of the members I've been raiding over the last 4 or 5 years, so not a lot's changed. Like I have some new guys, and I think it's important in general for a raid team to build some kind of synergy with each other, know each other's strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, for race to world first, there are like boomers in my kinship which don't always have the time availability to raid like an entire full week without working for this raid, so that's out of the question anyway. Basically we'll go into the raid with a clear mindset, and we'll see what that brings. So
all right. And good.
Yeah, we're taking 2 weeks of work, 18-hour raid days, 1 pee break, 2 hours sleep, and we're gonna get this.
Weak.
I'm just kidding. When it comes to my kin, reformed, it's kind of turned into like just I would almost call it casual, friendly kin. Like a lot of friends in this kin. We're not really gonna go for high tiers, but I have like a progression group with my what do you call them, raiding friends that I usually run stuff with. We're gonna try to do like most of the people in already said, we're gonna raid when people have time together. Not like take ourselves that seriously, but we're gonna try to beat the hardest tiers when people have time in the week. Just normal stuff.
All right, sounds good. Pretty humble opinions so far. All right, that was it for me, and that was it for the questions. I want to thank you guys for sitting down with me and having this chat.
Thank you for organizing.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully, or maybe we can do this again around the release of the next raid. I think it would be very fun to look back at whatever is coming. We don't know yet, because BR2 was pretty much for boss fights without mechanics, but I guess we'll find out, and then maybe we could talk about it in the future.
Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing to help out the channel. Leave a like, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next one. If you're playing or looking to play Lord of the Rings online, there is one place you need to be. The Ghyniverse is a community Discord server for the game Lord of the Rings Online. In this server you'll find anything from giveaways. There's also a frequently asked questions channel that I would recommend checking out first. You'll be able to see when I put out new YouTube videos, whenever I stream. You can also ask for the streamer role, and you'll be able to post your own streams in this server for everyone to see. There's currently over 5,000 members in this Discord, and it keeps growing. You will also find discussion channels about the game, Lotro. You can ask any questions in the help channel. There's discussions for every single class in the game and PvP. But one of the best things about this server is the best in slot items section. In this section you can find trait lines for every single class. You will find screenshots of the current best gear being displayed. In this channel you'll find charts showing what stats you need for your characters, mitigations, mastery crit, finesse, but you'll also find useful information about drop rates in different instances. I hope you will consider joining my server, and maybe one day I'll see you in Middle-earth.